Uncle Joel, and this is Pen and Reel, where I'll take a look at media issues not from the perspective of a fan or consumer, but as a writer and filmmaker. We've already received sequels, remakes, reimaginings, or at the very least new iterations of plenty of 90s movies, including Jurassic Park, Judge Dredd, Total Recall, Jumanji, and more. So I say, go all in and have some fun with 90s properties. And that, for me, means doing a remake of Demolition Man. Now, Demolition Man was hardly a great movie, but it never tried to be. It just wanted to have fun, and it certainly did. The premise was absurd, unbelievable, and over the top, but that's what makes it so fun. Consider the police, who have never known a world with violence in it, suddenly faced with a violent criminal. Rob Schneider's shock is hilarious, as his deadly serious line, "We're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of violence." There's so much about the movie that perfectly represents the 90s, and I think there has been enough time since its release that we can do the same thing with a modern remake. In fact, this could be a fun thing to do every 20 years or so. Give a new update that reflects the current era of action movies, technology, and humor. So how would we remake Demolition Man now? First off, let's get some actors that reflect today's landscape. I think the main star is easy, as The Rock would be a perfect modern fit for this role. As for who could possibly play opposite him, that is a bit more tricky for me. Kevin Hart is his regular acting partner and could possibly pull off the role, and I could see the studios readily get going for that combination again, but I'm not certain of the selection. Alternatively, this could be good. Keep The Rock, but have him play the psychotic villain. Dude, I would love to see that. I want to see him go wild playing Simon Phoenix, acting insane and over the top. Which means that we need a straight man for the hero. I don't necessarily think we need to maintain the white and black makeup of the first film, but Michael B. Jordan comes to mind. I could see him playing a guy who's frustrated and fed up with all the ridiculous changes of the future San Angeles quite well. Or keep The Rock as the main character and have Michael B. Jordan play the villain. I can honestly see the movie working well either way. In fact, since this is a dream project that will almost certainly never happen, let's go crazy and say that I want to see both versions of the film. But if I have to choose one or the other, I say have The Rock play the villain and Michael B. Jordan play the hero. As for Sandra Bullock's character, I hate casting her in everything, but I think Scarlett Johansson could play the bright-eyed, naive character well. She would see very little action, so it wouldn't be casting her for those purposes like she usually is. I just think she could play the overly optimistic, almost bubbly character that Sandra Bullock played, and I think it would suit her well. So, since it's a remake, we'll keep the same basic plot. We won't go too crazy with changes, mostly focusing on the setting, jokes, and whatnot. I can see throwing in a few twists to the plot, but overall, maintaining the same basic structure works for me. In fact, I see very little that needs to be changed, just touched up. For instance, I love the awkwardness of Taco Bell as a fancy restaurant, which, as an aside, is already kind of happening now with their recent remodels. Only instead of the original movie explanation, that Taco Bell won the franchise wars and so every restaurant is Taco Bell now, play it to the situation of our present times. More and more places are getting pretentious, serving up fancy versions of familiar food or else overselling something basic as though it were fancy. For instance, I got a burger and fries from a fancy-ish place in California, and the menu said it comes with homemade, handcrafted, artisanal tomato jam. And you know what it was? Ketchup. It was ketchup, no different than you would find anywhere else. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they emptied a bottle of Heinz into their fancy little ramekin and slapped their pretentious label on it. Particularly where I grew up in California, there are restaurants like this everywhere, making simple things seem fancy by serving it in small doses and focusing more on presentation than anything else. So to think that Taco Bell could go this route, especially given their recent remodels, would not be a very big stretch of the imagination by any means. The marketing potential for Taco Bell would be great, and if for some reason they didn't want to do it, well, there are any number of fast food places that could capitalize on the opportunity. Updating the technology would be important, but keep with the sterilized advanced versions of things. No hollow displays or hand gestures like they do in so many movies, or anything pseudo-futuristic like that. Just overly polished versions of what we already have would suffice. Automatic graffiti removal absolutely has to be reused. Make the world feel like an Apple store, with everything touchscreen, face recognition, advertisements that utilize the name of the person watching them, like in Minority Report, voice recognition everywhere. The idea is that they live in a stifling, hyper-sanitized future. So creating a world that looks like that and reflects that visually is important. No harsh colors, no vibrant colors, just a lot of white, silver, and clean colors that make for a less inciting world. Hyperpurity has to be prominent. Reinforce the no physical contact of the original movie. No sex, no kissing, no high fives or hugs or anything like that. Bodily autonomy means bodily purity. Keeping separate is keeping clean, and clean means a long and happy life. No swearing, with voice recognition everywhere, fining you for saying anything impure. But take that a bit further, adding in negativity, with the voice recognition offering warnings and encouragements in response to negative statements. "This sucks," a character says, and the computer speaks up, saying, "A negative outlook will have a negative outcome. Think about all that life has to offer and focus on the abundant bounty provided by our wondrous city." And absolutely, positively, no matter what, reinforce the lack of violence for so many years. Having the police not understand violence in this docile world is crucial. There's nothing quite like that Rob Schneider line I mentioned at the beginning of the video. We're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of violence. The idea of inept police officers who are themselves scared of violence is hilarious and plays up the need for someone from a lost era to come in and save the day. The one thing that I might change is to add a little more emphasis on the brainwashing / mind-altering stuff from the original. Between the implanted information in Phoenix's mind and the knitting being taught to John Spartan, I feel something more could be done here. Make this a subversive aspect of the world. This kind of technology used on people regularly, perhaps at doctor visits, or at least while they are young and doing their most significant development. It is through this mind manipulation that hostility and dangerous thoughts are trained out of people, so that eventually people are docile, lacking in a lot of individuality. I feel like this was a missed opportunity of the original, and here we can play with it to make it so that individuality lost is highlighted as a reason this world doesn't work, even if it is technically more peaceful. It can create an interesting question, one that shouldn't be answered directly in the movie, but could subversively cause viewers to think about it. Is peace worth the loss of individuality? Is individuality worth the chaos that comes with it? Don't answer the question in the movie, just dangle it out there, with conflicting opinions put forth, and leave it at that. Maintaining the absurdity is important. Aside from the moral conundrum I just put forth, this isn't meant to be a complex movie, nor was the original. I think the original got panned so much because people don't know how to let a movie be what it is. And in this case, it's just supposed to be absurdist fun. Forget subtext, subtlety, or a complex plot. Just give us this weird juxtaposition and let the characters play in the weird world presented, with lots of explosions and fun action scenes. Ultimately, that's what this movie needs to be. A silly, fun action movie that reflects the times in absurd ways. If they keep with that spirit and really have fun with it, I think they can make an entertaining film that honors the original. It won't win any awards, but it's not trying to. It just wants to have a good time, and it wants you to join it in doing so. But what do you think? Do you want to see a Demolition Man remake? Do you like my casting choices, or do you have any others that you feel would be a better fit? Are there any ways you would want to change the movie, any elements you would want to see discarded or added to the film? Let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing what you think. And until next time, this is Uncle Joel saying, stay tangible.